see right through it.
I have a cedar hedge, but it's.
So I'm doing second to order. Can we please stand for a moment of silent reflection? Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, and we'll move on to the mayor's address. On behalf of myself and council, I want to congratulate Karen Mutronki on her completion of the municipal administration program, which consisted of 4 units. The units are introduction to local government, municipal administrative structure, municipal financial management, and management in the municipality. Karen has demonstrated her commitment to our municipality through her dedication and initiative for completing these modules on her own time. Karen is intending to continue her personal development journey this fall by registering for the municipal finance and accounting program. With the early passing of our budget and tendering of our infrastructure projects, I'm pleased to announce that Chris Mill Road and Black Creek Road resurfacing has been completed, and work is currently continuing on McMillan Road, Island View Drive, and Mink Lake Road. Thanks to Andrew Sprunt and our Public Works Department for the work they have accomplished during these challenging times. I would like to acknowledge the excellent work of our paramedics, doctors, nurses, PSWs, health units, and all the other frontline staff for developing the Renfrew County Virtual Triage and Assessment Center. This unique service delivery model is another example of how Renfrew County is on the leading edge, managing the COVID-19 crisis and healthcare reform, which was recognized by Dr. Tam on national media. County of Renfrew is providing 2 signs for each municipality to install in highly visible locations with the contact information for this program. Public Works staff have erected the signs. The province has passed the outstanding items of the provincial official plan, and the reality for Renfrew County municipalities is not positive. The ability to sever lots in our municipality will be restricted as the province has expanded the amount of land identified as prime agriculture, karst, and gravel resources in the mapping of North Algona Wlberforce. A report on the changes to the official plan are included in your agenda package. Some good news from the province is that our Roma delegation with Minister Todd Smith requesting modernization funding of $300,000 for the consolidation of Ontario Works, Renfrew County Housing and Child Care Service within the Renfrew County place was approved. That's the end of my mayor's address. So I have a resolution that council accepts the mayor's address as presented, and I'm going to move in a second.
2 questions for you, James. Where did they locate the 2 signs?
2 signs. Andrew, the location?
I have 1 location, Left Cemetery, and I didn't get the other sign.
The other one is on Highway 41 and Green Lake Road.
Oh, okay. And the number of cases we have in the county? Is it still at 20?
I believe we're still at 21. I didn't look today, but I believe we're still at 21. So can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Burns, seconded by Councillor Buckwell. The council accepts the mayor's address as presented. Councillor Buckwell?
Yes.
Councillor Burns?
Yes.
Councillor Rankin-Schoenfeld?
Yes.
Councillor Robinson?
Yes.
Yes, and myself. That's carried. Thank you. Item 5.1 is the adoption of the minutes. So I have a resolution that council accepts the May 19th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Can I get a mover to second? Oh, sorry, yes. Just backing up to staff recognition information. Staff tried to add it. It's just a video clip we did this morning where I congratulated Karen on the accomplishments she made completing her course. Andrew has it on his phone, so I think he was just, I'm just going to step out of the room and Andrew can come in and show it to you.
I think you gotta show you later, but that's all.
Oh, that's Karen.
That's Karen and Dave this morning. We're gonna try to post that later on. We're having a real big problem with internet tonight, the bandwidth.
Yeah.
It wouldn't load this tonight, but even on our Apple computer, it keeps shrinking on us because there's no bandwidth tonight, so there is some issues tonight.
Okay, Dan. Okay, thank you. Once again, we're at item 5.1. Can I get a mover and a seconder to accept the May 19th, moved by Councilor Reicher-Schoenfeld, seconded by Councilor Bucklow? Any additions, corrections, or omissions? Yes.
I just had a question on the bylaw we passed for the second tax rate and that's in the township. And the bylaw that we passed agrees that the expenditure for the year is, what was it? 6 million. And I thought that number should be in line with the budget that we passed. Shouldn't that be the same number? Like there's a difference, I think, of $243,000. That's just a question I have. 6,064,500, and the budget that we passed is 5,829.
Yeah, and I don't have that information.
Can the councilor repeat the question?
Yeah, so Daniel can hear.
The budget that we passed, the numbers is 5,821,100, and the bylaw that we passed is 6,064,500. Should they not be the same number?
It should, so I think you'll find that your budget is passed with an increase. So when you pass the budget, you approve the budget and the amount plus an increase of 3% on the
It
levy.
was 4%.
Before.
So that would be that.
So that's where you come to the 6 million.
That would be the 4% that we added after.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, additions, corrections? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Councilor Buckwell,
Yes.
Councilor Burnt,
Yes.
Councilor Reicher-Schoenfeld,
Yes.
Councilor Robinson,
Yes.
myself, yes, that's great, thank you. So that brings us to reports. Item 7.1 is the improvement to shoreline road allowance. I have a resolution that reads that the township enter into a 20-year lease agreement with the owner of 1087 Trademore Road to lease the 20-meter shore road allowance along the Boncha River situated in front of the property. The lease agreement is to include a safe harmless clause that will protect the township's liability. All costs are to be borne by the tenant. Further, once the lease has been executed by the tenant, the township will support the tenant's application to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry for a shoreline work permit. The annual rent is $1 per year for 20 years. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Buckwell, seconded by Councilor Robinson. Comments, questions? Councilor Burke.
Could we not sell this rural light shoreline, seeing if we do it on Church Point?
Yeah, so I'll just refer that to staff because that,
The question was, you know, to sell it?
Yeah.
That wasn't the request of the person, that the person wanted township support to, use to fix the, shoreline. So we could go back and say, if you want to do something, buy it. Or the other thing is that the person doesn't fix it, doesn't buy it in our shoreline roads. So this is just a compromise. It doesn't allow the person to do anything else in the shoreline but to fix that erosion. So unlike our shoreline lands that we sell, where he doesn't have any right more than anyone else to do anything else other than that. And we're not creating a financial burden, just saying, we're going to have let's do this properly, we're going to have these, you're going to pay that over a year.
So you can't keep people off the property either in terms of.
He has no other rights other than to fix that
Okay.
thing. That's, gives him the right to maintain that and fix it. So he can go back and fix it again in that 20 years.
But he would have to fix it with the tag tank set up by the end of the night.
Definitely, and that's included. And he'll have to the liability for that.
Any other questions, comments? So I will call for the vote. Councillor Buckle,
Yes.
Councillor Byrne,
Yes.
Councillor Rakeshonko,
Yes.
Councillor Robinson.
Yes.
Yes, for myself, that's carried. Thank you. Item 7.2 is the Point Church Shoreland Road closing. So I have a resolution that council accepts the Point Church Shoreland Road closing report as information purposes. And I got a mover and a seconder, moved by Councilor Byrne, seconded by Councilor Rakeshonko. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Councilor Buckle,
Yes.
Councilor Byrne,
Yes.
Councilor Rakeshonko,
Yes.
Councilor Robinson,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That's carried. Thank you. Item 7.3 is the 2 public planning meetings. I have a resolution that council accepts the report on 2 planning public meetings be put on hold as information and instruct staff to proceed with a public meeting through a Zoom audio format. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Byrne, seconded by Councilor Rakeshonko. Comments or questions?
Is this something that has to be done or just nice to be done? Is there a time constraint or something?
So I'll allow staff to speak to that.
So, just quickly, we were hoping that eventually restraints would be lifted. But at some point, we have to get back to the business. Can it wait another 2 weeks to another meeting? It could be. But at some point, we're going to have to decide to continue business. Other municipalities are doing their Zoom format meetings. They're having them. It's very difficult to do that because, as you know, what we're doing now. It's just saying, does council want to go through with it now, or do you want to wait to see if something happens in the next 2 weeks? The problems with this industry.
There could be potential problems, right, with the Zoom meeting simply with the technology for it or not?
As we're all finding out the problems in the country, there's a lot of quirks, and it would be a lot better to do it than everybody's in the same room. So as staff, it's easier for us to do it when everybody's in the same room. But again, at some point, you have to make a decision to carry on.
Councilor Buckle and then Councilor Robinson.
Andrew, if it's going to be simply a telephone meeting, what about using an ordinary conference call system that doesn't rely on the internet to conduct it?
That's a technology we could use. It seems to be like nice conceptual night, where there's some difficulty. The last few meetings actually have been pretty good. It just, does council want to go through with some sort of technical meeting where we're using the technology? Doesn't have to be Zoom, do some other format. But do you want to wait another couple of weeks and see what happens? We're hoping something happened today and it didn't. Problems?
Councilor Robinson and then Councilor.
Andrew, what is the impact of just putting it off for another couple of weeks?
It won't be a significant impact based on what's happening in the world today. But again, sometime we got to start doing things.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Rakeshonko.
I just thought we could wait another 2 weeks. It's not necessarily an emergency. A lot could change in 2 weeks. And then I think maybe the telephone, because if we're all to hear them and then you have Zoom problems that just for the delays of council meeting where we know if it was a telephone conference call, it would be there, right?
Which are I'll just use these.
That's right,
Yeah.
so I mean, to me, maybe we don't even, because I mean, it is kind of like some days it does work and some days, and how do we know the night of our council meeting that we work that day? So if we wait 2 weeks and we don't know, maybe some of the stuff would be lifted, that would be great. And if not, then we could proceed maybe with a telephone.
So council would agree to defer to the next meeting date?
I would also look at exploring some other venues of, or sort of vehicle of having a more public meeting. Because of the, fluctuation on Zoom.
Okay,
Yeah, you just deferring it, the next agenda goes forward.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Is there another place in our township that would be better? Like, would the Rankin Community Center be better? Would the Golden Lake Community Center be better in terms of people being able to access and that in here?
You'd still have to have them in 2 separate rooms. So you'd have to do like we did today, that council upstairs and your public downstairs, you're still gonna have to use the Zoom. But it would be one, you could do it with one screen, and you could have up to 5 members of the public in, if that's it.
Mm.
Oh. Did we miss the car meeting?
Apparently.
Drop-in,
Driving.
Dragon,
everything over the AM radio.
Yeah.
So I
With your headlights for yes.
deferred until next meeting. Councilor Buckle?
Yes.
Councilor Byrne?
yes.
Councilor Reggie Trumpo?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
And yes, that's carried, thank you.
I do agree though that if we don't have something by the next meeting, I think we are going to have to start getting back to business with things like this.
Yeah.
You can't put it off there, right?
No, because if people are trying to get this done, whether they're trying to get to shore work afterwards, there's only a limited amount of time
Yeah.
in the season for that.
So item 7.4 is the transfer site's return to pay for service. We have a resolution that council accepts the report on the return to pay for service at the transfer sites and that staff implement the plan as soon as possible. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Byrne. Questions, comments? Councilor Buckle?
The only question I would have is the starting date for it. If we make it too soon without any warning, people aren't going to be prepared for it. I'd have to see if maybe, again, it talks about here about doing an honor system to start, but then that transition maybe into a future date for you definitely have to pay now.
So I can speak on that.
Sure.
So as soon as possible, means that we have to put things in place, which means it's not going to be this weekend. And doing sort of a break-in like we're doing with the building, where you just slowly get into it. We haven't been charging anything, so working into it is something, again, we have to get back to business somehow. So that's what we just be working into it over the next 3 weeks, I would suggest.
Supplementary?
A supplementary. So just for example, if someone was to show up this weekend with 4 bags and wanting to pay, that would be okay. Or they could do the 2 bags and not.
So during that sort of somewhat grace period, we're just bringing people back in, that we have to come up with this pay system. And the honor system, the reason we have this strong box is so the staff and the people do not have to make that hand and contact, and then to be able to stamp their own cards. Again, you can stand 6 feet away and say, look, I stamped the card. That's why we're saying the bingo dad or the pen, so you can really see what you did. It's not going to be perfect, but at some point, again, you have to start recouping some of that revenue.
Councilor Reggie Trumpo, and then Councilor Robinson.
So the report does say starting on June the 6th. So to me, that would mean on June the 6th, if we went to the transfer sites, we'd have to pay $2 a bag and then follow the next paragraph protocol.
So if council wants to say that we will be firmly into this in 3 weeks, I can do that. We just want to get going as soon as we can. And we have to buy the strong boxes. We've got those, basically there are 2 boxes with a hole cut in them. We're not going to have that in place for this week.
Okay, so the other thing too is, so let's say it's 3 weeks from now, Is there gonna be like wipes? Like I can envision a table with like wipes and the bingo gab with a marker, the person, socially distanced does this and then shows and then wipes it down.
So
Is
what
that-
we're telling people is they're bringing their own bingo dabber and their own marker. So
Okay,
they're never mirroring, because
okay,
otherwise you would have to have the white.
okay, because if I'm looking at this, then I'm thinking the bingo dabber and that is fine. I mean, it's fine as long as they know.
And this is part of the communication strategy to get this out, and there'll be a process, and I spoke with one of the transfer site operators the other day, will this work, is this good? And she said, yes, this would work for her. And that protects her, and again, we're not making the residents touch anybody, so garbage has always been dirty and always had a lot of things, but it's the paper trail with the cars and with the money that we're taking out of the scenario.
Councilor Robinson and then Councilor Burke.
I guess my biggest thing is communication. So at the transfer site, are there going to be notices up that's visible so that people know if we can start it earlier saying it's being phased in. But I think to avoid the confusion, we need to have that really readily and clearly marked.
So throughout this whole thing, we've been trying to be very good at trying to get communication out. One thing that's become very popular, which can be a curse to me, but our Thursday news releases that we're putting out every Thursday is getting a lot of following. So we would put that out first with that, plus poster campaigns wherever we can post things.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that this would also go into the newspaper to get that out. So it would be next week that we go in the newspaper.
So I do think we should have a firm date so people know, but I've been educated up to that firm date.
Exactly.
And the firm date also says, please bring exact change if you do not have, like I still have bag tags, right? Or your, whatever the permit card, the garbage permit card, and make sure you have a writing so you can stroke it off, right? Like, because I think everybody should follow it, especially Maria, like you said, if we have something posted at, like, the Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery is one, because, and then also the 2 transfer sites, because if you bring your garbage here, you can read what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Because I think that was the frustration the first time, people didn't know what was going on.
The 27th?
Councilor Burke.
I just had a comment. I was asked by 2 residents that we didn't supply any safety stuff for the people at the transfer sites. And the only reason they asked me that question, I know some of them go to Township Valley and the people out there have the visors on when they're talking to the other people. And they said, isn't that a safety concern for the council that we should protect them? That's the only comment I have.
So we followed the guidelines, the safety, our staff, the disinfectants, they've got gloves, they have everything that's required. A safety shield has not been something that's been required for their contact because they're not getting close to anyone.
Now, just a comment that 2 residents made to me, and I know we go to Township and
But I think lots of organizations do things differently.
no, I just say I just have to say.
It's the contact, and the one thing with waste, the solid waste, it always was dangerous, there always was cautions. Our thing was to keep people at least 2 meters apart, so that we didn't have to do those things. One, not that it's part of this, but we are now looking at buying masks for all our staff that are washable masks, because this is what's being recommended to us, that we do that, and we have that available. So we're working on suppliers, or not very difficult to get suppliers right now, but we've got 1 mask we're trying out, and then we're going to have every staff going to get a couple of masks so they can have one on, if they choose to wear them, and if we're directed to wear them.
So you're saying the 27th?
That's 3 weeks. So it'll be the Saturday, the 27th. I believe.
Not the 20th? That's 2 weeks. Because we're the 2nd now.
Yeah, so the 27th gives us the full 3 weeks.
Okay.
From Saturday to Saturday, from June 6th to the 27th.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, and just another question, when I was there on Saturday, a number of people was asking about large item, bulky bit, that can't happen with overseas.
So what we would like to do and what we talked to council is, they talked about delaying it. So we're going to come back with possible ways to do a large item, okay? If council gives me direction, I come back next 2 weeks, but I want to have a little bit of time to come up with it. But I do have an idea that will work for the large item. I just have to make sure that it falls within all the things that we're allowed to do.
Just Karen, again, questions on.
And definitely it's been something that's been a concern.
Councilor Robinson, I think, first, and then Councilor.
I think that should also be something that we add as a information, because there's a lot of interest in it. So I know, like, when we put out the information on the charging, we should also probably make a note within that block.
Within our news releases on our council thing, we've said it a couple of times, but yeah, it's still time to remind people.
Yes.
So what I generally do with my press releases, I try not to make them too repetitive. So last week I didn't put a lot in, but next week I'll put more stuff in and we'll go back around those things. Unfortunately, it's time consuming. That's one of our successes that we've had here is that press release. Every Thursday, people know that they're going to get a press release on Thursday.
Okay. And
it's working out really good. So you know that you're going to get information on Thursday. So that's something I'm going to suggest that council makes staff do because it works out pretty good.
Councilor Anderson.
So like 2 suggestions, whenever you decide and whatever the large pickup day looks like, could you also mention somewhere, because I think last year there was some problems where people thought those were acceptable things and they weren't, and I think there was some angry people. And the other thing too, I really like the press releases, but I sometimes forget to check the website. Is there any way when you send a press release out that you could also send it to the council?
And if that's an oversight, that we should be doing that, we can do that. Just really quickly, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail. It was actually funny because I heard it today. But with large item, and this is just making sure that we do this thing, my intention would be that, just use Island View for example. You drop a bin in Island View, and you've got X amount of time this morning, put your stuff in it, and we close the bin up and it goes to the next site. If we can do that without having, and I said I heard it today.
We should get pizza.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's something,
We trademarked that.
it's something that, fortunately or fortunately, it's something I did 20 years ago. When we do that in the district of Muskoka, we drop a bin. This is the time you have to bring your stuff in, get it in, close it up, go to the next site. The problem is the transport and the generation, which is what I'm going to work on, and the generating of waste in certain spots.
Yeah.
So just wanted to tell you this is what we're working on, and it will be a lot cleaner and a lot less staff time. And then you don't get the couches hanging out the back of someone's trunk because it's just coming down, they're bringing down a wheelbarrow.
But is there a police officer there saying acceptable, not acceptable?
And we will put that
Because
out.
I can see somebody would be like, well, we do have bylaw officers now, but I could see somebody saying they're not looking. In those X.
Well, you'd have to staff them there.
So
Well,
we
we
still
do.
have staff member
We
there.
still have bylaw, we have bylaw people, right, and stuff.
So we'll have something for council in the near future, and maybe the next meeting, but it might be.
But it's good if the population knows that we're still thinking of it, and that takes the heat off of the transfer people thinking of it.
I like, to be honest, but I like the idea of doing that to a certain extent. The concern I have is if you've got some of the large items, can they get it into the bin? Whereas at the waste site, we used to do it with over.
I guess though, in your press release or in your rules, you'd say something like it is your responsibility to put in the bin. So like in my case, if I was moving a couch or a mattress.
Don't expect somebody to know.
Or you, but you used to do with the opening back door, like you did for.
But I'd
the
also
plumbers.
make sure somebody came to help me then, right? So me and my son went through the couch.
We would have a piece of equipment, not necessarily to put the stuff in, but the compact stuff, and if you have to push something real quick, do that. So leave that up to staff, and we'll come back to that.
Thank you.
So I just added another sentence to the resolution. I'll reread. Council accepts the report on the return to pay for service at the transfer sites. Staff implement the plan as soon as possible. And further that the return to pay for service will be implemented by June 27th, 2020.
Or do we say on June 27th and not on? 'Cause
Oh, I'm sorry, and that's what I put on June
Okay,
22nd.
because on to me is the.
I will then call for the vote. Councillor Buckle,
Yes.
Councillor Byrne,
Yes,
Councillor Riker Schoenfeld,
Yes,
Councillor Robinson,
Yes,
and I'm a yes, that's carried, thank you. Item 7.5 is the office reopening report. I have a resolution that council accepts the office reopening report as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Riker. Comments, questions?
Yeah, I just walk council through with, and so most of the council seem to set up plexiglass there, and that's what most operations, retail operations have done in the country. We've also put up some separations for staff. You've all seen our little lines for the building. But what we're going to do to the public will only come in the foyer area for the cash counter. And we have a system that we've been working on. I said I would have a soft opening that's what we're doing this week, where people come past the window where the receptionist sits. She will tell them to come into the building and they will wait there. That way we can do one person in at a time. Because it's working, and I will say that the public that we've had in, even though we haven't advertised it, we've got public coming in, they're very friendly and very used to what we're putting in place. They've all been trained now. So we're going to buy some more permanent barriers. So fencing is basically construction zone fencing. It's not, I didn't want to put the snow fencing because it has issues. This is just fencing that we rent for $10 a month per section. So it's a $40 a month rent. And this is in place for 2 months, in place for 3 months. If it's in place for 6 months, I suggest we probably buy something. But it is movable and it certainly is working. And again, people are being very respectful and they're very happy to be able to get in the office physically. Just one further thing that's not on the report. And I was waiting on the report because I was hoping the province would say something. At this point, we don't have a protocol for coming in the council chamber because it's not available yet. But we'll have a protocol when we get into the ability to bring people into the council chamber. And then all of this stuff, which is things that is the waste site, is all going to be advertised and communicated. This week, we just wanted to make sure it worked because we wouldn't want to have it fail when we just try something. So it's working fine. And people, again, are very respectful. The staff have been protected first, which is certainly our biggest concern. They've got a protocol for, you may lose a few pens in the world because cleaning pens is difficult. Most retail things where they have a pen, basically we're giving them a pen. And most people are actually bringing their own pens in.
We should order a bunch of township logo pens and it's marketing at the same time.
I thought we still had some here.
We still have some pens.
They don't work, we're not missing anything by giving them out.
the dates up there,
So the date, we're open officially now, and we plan to be firmly open next week, and we'll just keep advertising that, and it slowly will build up. There's a very good communication world where it's word of mouth through here, and we have people saying, I heard you were open coming to the door, so, and people certainly read the agenda, so they know what's going on. And some people have come up to their cottage, come to pay their taxes, and they don't know we're closed. So we get that too.
Thank you, Andrew. Seeing no further comments, I'll call for the vote. Councillor Buckwell,
Yes.
Councillor Byrne,
yes,
Councillor Riker Schoenfeld,
yes,
Councillor Robinson,
yes,
and yes, that's carried. Thank you. Item 7.6 is the final tax bill penalty interest extension report. I have a resolution that council agreed to waive the penalty interest on the August 31st, 2020 final tax installment to September 30th, 2020. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Byrne, seconded by Councillor Buckle. Questions, comments?
We just take time to read it because I don't think it.
Sure. Can you make it bigger? Please?
It goes fast. Is that the last thing in there? Is there more after financial implication? Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Councillor Buckle?
Yes.
Councillor Byrne?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Councillor Reggie Johnson?
Yes.
Councillor Robinson?
Yes.
And a yes, that's carried. Thank you. Item 7.7 is the Canada Day report. I have a resolution that council accepts the report as presented and authorizes staff to proceed with the Canada Day 2020 event. Can I get a mover and a second? Moved by Councillor Schoenfeld, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Comments, questions? Councillor Schoenfeld.
Andrew, who was the it said something like a dedicated, I need a dedicated person to do this regularly.
So this would be our summer student.
Okay, so that's a dedicated person that would be organized.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. And so what would they be looking for in what was she thinking in terms of the contest? What did she kind of envision?
So this was, not that I take credit for it, this wasn't the creation of my creation. But we're all collaborating in that idea. What I had asked for to work on the contest, but first we've got to find out if we're going to have something.
Right, okay.
So contests have to be something that fits the new world, which is something you can do online or mail in or phone in. But the reason I came up with this idea is I didn't see anybody else doing it, but it's the one thing that we can do that's allowed right now, as long as we keep that spacing and people keep moving. And we have the one thing is a virtual card, basically on the front card, thanking the first responders, which people could sign online and send a message, and we could send that to the various groups that participated. And you will notice throughout the township, there's a lot of signs, thank you. So we know that we have that public engagement in this.
So the day of, what would you see like staff doing?
So we would have to have staff at, if we do it, and I suggested Melissa Bishop or Golden Lake or even both of them. Basically staff at each end, we're going to make it a one-way street that day. And staff would let cars in without blocking the highway and tell them they have to keep moving slow. There's going to be, snacks along here that you just stop, it's on pedestal, you grab it and go. Basically, you're waving to the first responders. We have the mayor and council waving on the sidelines and spaced apart. But
It's gonna be that.
you might want to, but we also know that within the next month, it may mean that you can be all standing together too.
Right.
But things aren't going to change significantly. This gives us the opportunity to do something. It's not going to be cost us anymore because we already have a budget for Canada Day, but it is a way to get things out. I've got our dedicated person looking at what snack we can give out that is somewhat Canada Day oriented, but packaged properly. And actually, it's interesting. I had a conversation with Mennonites and their ability to do cakes the way they're able to package them and put them out now. So there's even a chance of doing something local.
We're probably gonna have distancing circles with municipal.
Just for the council members.
I think realistically, I think most of the bishops, the only places would work. I don't think you'd have enough room to center Gold Lane.
Yeah.
Because you're basically going through the parking lot and behind the fire hall. But I think you need a section of road, like in Melissa Bishop, and like you say, come off the highway and.
Yeah, it's a nice little horseshoe.
It is.
Yeah.
And what if you get out of three in and out?
And that intersection.
July 1st.
July 1st.
July 1st.
But what day is that, Saturday or Sunday?
The Wednesday.
Or Wednesday? It is a
Yeah.
pretty busy intersection.
Yeah, I got a good intersection of any time.
But probably not that day.
It's fan.
So Melissa Bishop would be your choice to do.
I think so.
Logistically, yeah.
See, it's the biggest area for us to do things.
And plus too, if they did relax stuff, we could do some other events there.
Yeah.
Spur of the moment.
So it wouldn't be something where we need 30 staff. It's going to be the small area of the polling. So basically we have staff at either end, staff supplying the treats that we're giving out, treats and cake or whatever. Balloons. And the balloons, yes. And also we would have to use our enforcement officers basically to walk up the line and make sure that people. And the negative part is we have to make sure that we're not blocking the highway. But other than that, we can accommodate more than 50 cars in a row on that stretch. So we can actually do a lot of cars going through.
And you know what, maybe we could even have, I'm just putting it out there, a prize for the best dressed candidate vehicle, right, or something like that, right? Where, you know, you could just either go by license plate or, you know, a number, and then, you know, you could mail them the prize and mail, you know, the gift certificate or something like that. That might encourage more, because there's a lot of people with old vehicles around, or crazy things.
Vintage truck.
Gift certificate's a good idea.
Yeah.
You can also.
And especially if we do it, so like, I'm just thinking, like, you know, if we're trying to support local businesses, like, you know, the cottage shop, even Foodland, you know, Country Depot, like, just think of the Reiki meats. I'm sure you could, you know, get some gifts. Anyway, that's just it.
Can you maybe step out of the room for a second, Dave?
Sure.
Let's talk about the mayor in a second. So I had our summer student just make a little mock-up today of what we envision, and
How many summer students do we have?
we're going to have 4. So basically, what we're going to have is like going around. She didn't do the color one, yes, we didn't do that. But what we envision at the basically, yeah, we just told this. So at the beginning of the boat launch, along this area, which you really can't put people, vehicles along, what we'd like to do is sort of have a little banner city where we have the hospital banner, we have Foodland banner because they've been open, and Fresh Mart and some of the health unit stuff. And that would be sort of our banner road. And then we would have some township vehicles, children like to see equipment, some fire vehicles where we have some space, and then paramedics, OPP, military. We've already started preliminary conversations, and there's some interest out there coming. So that's sort of what it would look like. And we try to space it out. And basically, it's a reverse parade. It's like going to the African Lion Safari. The people are in the cages.
We're on display.
Yeah. Okay, Mayor, like, now.
Some of the people don't show water balloons.
Depending on the day, it might not be too bad.
Exactly.
If it's hot, then you don't mind.
Always standing next to the fire truck, get them back to the hose.
So although most of the things can be done internally, we've talked about trying to get, and I'll talk to the chair, about getting a virtual meeting with our rec committee, because there's a lot of ideas that we can go in there too. So that would be all part of this. If council is interested in doing it, if there's no expense because you already have the money all on it, you have a grant, then we'll go forward with that and maybe bring other organizations in that as we can, but it depends on what's available. We can do this event. We have the time to do it.
That would be great.
And I think it's a good thing, you know, because that's what we keep saluting, you know, the people that are the frontline workers and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it's.
So we have a title of the event, Canada Day, the tribute thing.
Yeah.
The council's good with that, and that's the way we sort of market it.
Yeah. I think that's great. Yeah, so it brings some levity to.
Well, no, I think it's a good thing to do, and it kind of shows that we're still moving forward differently
Yeah.
Right.
in these times.
Absolutely.
Seeing no further comments, I'll call for the vote. Councilor Buckle?
Yes.
Councilor Byrne? Yes. Councilor Reddish-Shonto?
Yes,
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
I'm a yes. That's carried. Thank you. Departmental reports. Item 8.1 is the March building permits, and the resolution of council accepts the March building permits report as presented. I'm going to move it a second. Moved by Councilor Byrne, seconded by Councilor Buckle. Comments, questions? Councilor Reddish-Shonto.
so, I'm just trying to figure out, how did they figure out the permit fees is based on what the estimated cost of construction would be, and then it's a percent?
Basically.
And so then who estimates like something like the demolition of a sleep cabin is gonna cost $300?
So there's some things that are already listed, and there's past practice, and then there's value based on the evaluation of the building inspector.
So they just, so some of it is a little bit of a guesstimate of cost. So I get it, so it's really a percentage, the building fee, permit fee, sorry, a percentage of the estimate cost. For demolition. Whatever it is.
Yes.
So just a few interesting things for council to consider with the building permits this year. This is the month of March. So if you're looking at that, you see one pod start, and the rest of it's very minor stuff. The month of April, we know that you weren't allowed to start any new building projects. So we're doing zero, basically April is going to be some issue. But if we look at the month of March, we took in $1,300, and we paid more than double that to have a building inspector. So what I did is I looked back last year, and last year we took in a total of $30,000 for the building inspector, which is a little bit more than half of what we're paying. But it might be something for council to consider in the future. Is the service worth it, or is it something you want to do pay to go service? Because you do have a relationship with the municipality to do the building inspection. So just something I talked to neighboring municipality, and last year they lost money on the building inspector, and the year before they were up a few $100. Not everything, you can look at it that if they're doing a lot of building inspecting and still losing money, you're gaining tax credit. But a lot of the building that we do, if I went back to last year, so you have a septic approval, it's not having anything to do around. So some of them don't give us any value. So they just, it's information, but it just points to one.
Well, and if I could just add to that, I know at Whitewater, the building inspector there, they reduced his work week in the winter to a 4-day work week, because traditionally in the winter, they're not issuing nearly as many permits, or they're not doing the inspections. So I agree that it's a service, we might be better off on pay as you go, or if we could maybe look at something where maybe we share the service with 3 or 4 municipalities, it might be more cost effective.
Another reminder for council, you have a year that you have to give notice, and 120 days notice for the building inspector. So, which is, you have 2 contracts.
So would council be interested in staff bringing back a more detailed report at maybe the next meeting, and then we have some time to consider whether we want to continue or send a letter of notice to our neighboring municipality to say that we want to investigate it, different service option?
And probably some options included in there.
You have 2 meetings.
Sure. That's okay with council?
Yeah.
So that's just direction to staff?
Direction to bring a report forward.
Yes. This is just the council accepts the March building permits report as presented. I'll call for the vote. Councilor Buckle,
Yes.
Councilor Byrne,
Yes.
Councilor Reddish-Shonto,
Yes,
Councilor Robinson,
Yes.
Department reports 8.2 is the municipal enforcement updates. I have a resolution that council accepts the municipal enforcement update as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Rector Schoenfeld, seconded by Councilor Buckwell. Staff will speak to it. Oh, sorry, it's Councilor Rector Schoenfeld.
Do you know how many people, how many cottages are being checked by our full-time?
There was only a few, not a lot took advantage of it. But we had a lot of positive comments about it, but in the end, there wasn't a lot of comments there. There's 3 on it right now, but that may not still be.
Okay, thank you.
Just an update on the hazardous waste, I know that's in there. We were given some information in regards to the person or persons that may have done this. We passed that information on to the Ministry of Environment. There's now a file open on it, and we're opposed to, we're going to get back to council if we have it.
And do we know what was in it yet?
We suspect it was some sort of paint hardener, but we've asked the company that picked it up to analyze it for us, to tell us what it is. And there's going to be a cost of about $100 to figure it out.
So paint hardener, so that like.
It's like a catalyst for paint.
Okay.
And just for council's information, your bylaw or municipal law enforcement is up and running. Jill was in last Thursday. She did several contacts to residents regarding some complaints. And you actually have a bylaw department that's functioning, so but big thing.
Councilor Buckwell.
One of the things that was in the minutes for a previous meeting was looking at a dedicated contact number.
So she is looking into what she can do with that. So the instruction in the last one was to investigate. So she did.
Okay, seeing no other comments, I'll call for the vote. Councilor Buckwell.
Yes.
Councilor Byrne.
Yes.
Councilor Rector Schoenfeld.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
And a yes, that's carried. Thank you. 8.3 is Public Works Report. I have a resolution that council accepts the Public Works Report as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Buckwell, seconded by Councilor Burns. I'll ask just ask staff to speak to it.
So I can't see my report, but you can see it. So we have completed Bristol, which you know. We have completed Main Lake Road. We have completed Black Creek. And we have completed McMillan. We are now on Island View. And as the report states, just on Island View alone, to get our money down, we had to cut $117,000 out of our budget. So that means less gravel, which we were able to work on to Island View. It also means cutting back on some of the culverts. So one of the culverts there, just because of the timing when the contractor's coming, is going to have to wait for next year, no matter how much money we have, we can't put something into the that. So it has to be done another time. It's in a location where there's 2 culverts. One has the bottom rotting out of it, the other one's functioning. Is it going to fall apart next year? No. Is it something we have to deal with? Yes. So it would be a slight cost added to when we do that later, but it's something coming. There's another culvert that we were installing between 2 properties. And there's a place, and I don't name names, it's a catch basin that's been in there, and there's been a traditional historical problem there. There's been some frustration trying to do something with no money. I have talked to the property owner, this is the way we're going to do it. The property owner is asking for a catch basin on the other side. I don't think that's a big thing. I just can't keep adding money to not having money. You know, putting a culvert in is what the way I would like to go. And I don't have, it's like money that you don't have. So if council wants to satisfy the person that wants that, there may be some drainage someday to come back into that area. But I've got it, I'm getting this road put down next week, the next week. I need to get the culvert in. So that's where I'd like to go with this council support. If council wants to give more money, then do something else. It's just a difficult thing to be pulling out of money right now.
So the road would get Township and then next year you rip
So the
up part
one
of the
culvert,
town?
we're gonna have to rip up a section about 20 feet wide. And that's something that's not unheard of. You saw MTO last year did a lot of culverts, when you just rip a section out. It's the price you pay for having to do something you can't do it. And at this time, you can't do any shoreline work or you work on a fish habitat until after July 15th. This is going to be done before July 15th. And basically, if we don't get the job done, item U is going to be not the way it is until probably October. Because right now we're on the first of the list. It's not worth waiting. You actually have all your road projects pretty much underway. That cemetery, we're surveying on that cemetery. The consultant believes we're going to get a tender out this year. You actually may come up to the point where you get all your road projects done. And certainly you're ahead of the curve right now.
Royal Pine would be going ahead too?
Royal Pines is not on the list other than some operational ones. So after we get everything done, we're gonna try to pad some areas in Royal Pines, but it was taken out of the project list. So we're gonna do what we can do. But if I put more money in Island View out of my operations, I have less money to put somewhere else. So council asked us if we could try to do some padding on Royal Pines. I'm not gonna have any money or use my corporate budget. On there's a few other things. If you have any questions on things, the boat launches are all open. There's been a lot of talk in Ontario about boat launches in general. We've had no issues with our boat launches. We have had a few concerns brought to us about timing of opening boat launches because of activities on the lake. And council may want to consider in the future that this is the date that we open boat launches and this is the date we close boat launches. So people know well in advance that we're going to open April 1st or we're going to open May 24th weekend or whatever. So that's something that you have a little bit of time, but I would suggest we look at something like that for boat launches. Washrooms, we are not required to open washrooms. What we are required to do, if we do open washrooms, we're required to follow provincial protocol for cleaning washrooms. Cleaning a washroom is generally fairly easy. Our plan is that we would open the washroom during the day and we would close it at night, and in the morning we would clean the washroom. That gives the washroom a chance to settle down and we spray it at night. So that protocol works. The outhouses that we have, we don't have the same cleaning abilities for those. We've already had some vandalism where they're breaking the doors off the path. I would suggest that we don't do anything with the outhouses, that we just tell people basically you're using at your own discretion and bring your own toilet paper because we can't clean those. But there's also, when you drive through, we have people driving through Algona Park. There's one set of washrooms open near the Algona Park one. The MTO sites are not open, other than one. There is one MTO site open. At the park gate, both gates, they have outhouses behind the washrooms. It's a porta potty behind the water. I don't understand that. That's what they're putting in there. And then there's nothing, at Oxton Lake, there used to be an MTO one. It's not open. So there's nothing until you get to Huntsville where you get into a restaurant that doesn't allow you to come in. So Walmart, people are going to go to the washroom if we don't put something there, but we can't clean them. So my suggestion is, actually, there's two of them, Biederman Park and Deacon, we just leave them open. The council is good with that. If you want to clean them, because the protocol is twice a day, these are going to be going out those things.
What's a buckle?
What if we post the washrooms as closed?
Basically,
Just like a couple of things even about the other washrooms, like, I mean, you go into businesses now and it says washrooms are only for employees only, and just like how people are getting trained to like wash their hands or ask, you know, is this a proper procedure coming into your place of work? Like, I don't even know, to me, with cleaning the washrooms that we can, that is a good idea, because I think it's only safe for that first person that's going in. Like, how do I know who else is going in after me? And we're kind of putting our workers at risk. That's my 2 cents on that.
and council can make that decision if you want to do that. It certainly makes things easier. My concern that I would give council is that people are gonna try to go into the washrooms and they're not gonna have someplace to go and have on the ground. But that's up to council. I will say I talked to municipal affairs about what we should do. And we talked about the swim beaches and things, so we can have beaches open. But outdoor water facilities, we can't have, so where we do the swim club with the docks and all that stuff, that's a facility. And I've noticed a Bishop, it's a beach, but we have change rooms for the facility. So the change rooms would be something you'd want to not have open. But I think, I listened to what the council was saying, I think that's a good thing. I think if council can just delay opening the washrooms until like June 21st or something, before we even look at like opening the washrooms. They're all already open, but until the protocols change, I would certainly agree with folks who can close it to the end of the month, we can reassess it.
And also I would reassess it if it starts to become a problem, if people are, they're defecating on, or if they're, you know what I mean, then we can readdress it. And I was just wondering about putting the picnic tables out, like if we're trying to keep people from not being around, is picnic tables inviting people to this?
So what we're getting from the province, they're telling us things we can do and things we can't do. So they're telling us now that eventually the picnic tables can go back out. But they're not, they're saying you don't have to open your washroom, but you know, it is sort of counter. But
I mean, because they say it doesn't mean they have to. Like to me, I'm trying to make a place not inviting so we don't have people there until the rules and regulations or until something changes. That's just my personal opinion, because then are we going to be inviting an issue? But if it's uninviting, maybe that show I don't know.
I have the same feeling that we don't want to have them up in Toronto. You put the tables out and people just, oh, park social. It's sort of inviting them.
so parks, you're allowed to play in a park, you're allowed to play baseball in a park, you can get family together. So they're encouraging people to have activities. If council directs us to take the picnic table back, it's not a big deal, we'll do that. And I understand where it's coming from, that you have those concerns. We're just trying to keep up with what the province is telling us we can do, so that we do provide some things to the residents and to visitors.
The other thing too, I think we are very lucky to be where we are, where we do have lots of wide open spaces. You know what I mean? And so we're very fortunate, as opposed to some people that live in Toronto or Ottawa, where it's like that is the only wide open space is that spot, right? That's right. And so I think we're very fortunate. I'm just trying to like keep our workers safe, right? Without, you know, getting into something else. I mean, I know what the province is trying to say, but we're in a unique position too. And like maybe it's like this is just COVID is very fluid, right? So we can't like make firm things, but maybe, you know, in 2 weeks things open up and then we have to, you know, when another report comes in, we make a decision. At any rate,
Councilor.
Just another question. Did we get any grants for summer students?
Yes. So we did get the grant for summer students. So generally our grants are a small percentage from summer students. What they did this year is they gave us full funding for one student. So basically it's the same thing that we did. So the answer is yes. We're still awaiting for the province, and we have 2 applications for grants for the province. So we're not increasing, in fact, we decreased the amount of students that we have. But the federal government was very big about saying that the Canada Job Grant is going to get really big and then go into the fall. In the end, we got 2 months of funding, full funding. But basically, it's status quo with what we got. They just made it simpler for the one to get students.
Well, I have 2 questions, Andrew. The first one relates to Arlington Drive. What kind of additional money are you looking for to complete that culvert before they actually do the road? I'm talking about the catch basin, not the culvert.
So the catch basin isn't necessary. With the culvert, the water draining off the road into the catch basin. The cost of doing this is costing me more every day. I got a propane tank that's going to cost me $500 a week, so that my workers can work beside it. But the catch basin is someone else's opinion. It's not my opinion. My opinion, if I get water off the road and swing into the swale and over the swale, it's going to go to the lake. It would be pretty to have a catch basin, and maybe the water doesn't. The water is not going to the catch basin; it's going to the swale. But it's our right of way. It's not someone else's right of way. The catch basin on the other side historically has been there. what we're doing is we're putting a culvert in with a T-structure, which isn't really a catch basin. So it's on the road of the culvert, and we're just gonna put a grate on top of it. So it's gonna address the surface water that traditionally has pond there, and it's gonna go into the lake. We're adding a 16-inch culvert. There never was anything coming out of that swale. So if water gets to that swale, it's going someplace. If we find that we need to put a catch basin in that other location, we can do it later. Right now, it's getting that pipe across the road is what we want to do.
There's one that's on there right now.
There's no pipe going across the road. There never was a culvert there. So water went into that swale, eventually percolated through the ground. So we're putting a culvert in, it's gonna help water get away. We're going to be digging up the side of the road, and we're going to put grading into the swale. So the water's gonna go off the road into the swale. It doesn't need to stop at a catch basin first.
So it's actually going to be much better
It has to be better.
than what it was before.
We're doing improvement, but the problem is now, with any delay I have, I'm going back and forth with the landowner. It's just delaying my job because I need to be ready. I've got gravel going down the road next Monday.
Right.
I need to get it done. And it's been a frustrating thing getting there because when you don't have any money, you know, you're working to get this done. Every time it's a roadblock, it costs more money.
And I guess that's what I'm asking is how much more money do you need to complete this project, or can you complete it?
I'm working within my culvert budget, but I'm really squeezing to do it. If I have to keep doing more, then it's going to cost us more, and then you have to come to council and say, can you give me $16,000 for stuff to do that with private contractors?
Not sure. I think Council Burke and then Council Buckle. Did you have a question?
Yeah, the big culvert at Highway 60, the first year that we go and look at that one must be.
It doesn't have to be replaced this time.
It doesn't.
This time. And there's some culverts that'll be down the road replaced, but we have $65,000 for culverts. I don't have anything for culverts, so we've replaced the worst culverts, but a couple that were really bad. And we know we have to replace the one at the boat launch. But it can't be done because that is actually a stream that goes back and forth, and fish respawn there, and it's a traditional place that people actually jump in. So it's not something where we can sneak in there and do it.
So, and that's the one where you're saying it might have to be done next year?
Yes. But the one that we're doing now is one that never existed before, but there's always been a problem there, and I'd like to fix that problem and make it go away.
Council Buckle.
So I guess my question is, the one that you're talking about fixing where the land, adjacent landowner doesn't agree, are you satisfied with that? What your plan is to fix the problem?
It's going to make drainage better there. Will it fix what's perceived in someone's head? Not necessarily. Will it make drainage better? If there's a swale and there's a culvert, and the culvert takes water from the swale to the other side of the road, and the road is slanted or graded down towards the swale, water on the road and coming along the road is going to go into the swale, it's going to go across the road. It has to make it better than it is, because now there's no culvert. So I'm over here.
And the only other, I had another question as well, just in regards to the boat launches. I know this year we had to monitor boat launches because of the whole COVID crisis. Is it something we should be doing on a yearly basis? I don't know if we put up a barrier and chain across, and then we monitor it and open it at a certain period of time. Because I just think, is there a liability issue? I think in Melissa Bishop Park in the spring, every spring, we've got the snowmobilers there who do water skipping over the mouth of the Snake River. Does that create any liability on the municipality that they're using that as an access?
It can. So there's what I said at the beginning of the meeting is, when I talked about it, is you probably should have an open date and close date for your boat launches. And then you eliminate both the liability and the maintenance. Someone calling and saying, well, you know, I can't get into the boat launch. I know it's not open. In other municipalities, put a barrier there. You drop a concrete barrier in front of the boat launch and they open it by the barrier. if that's what we want to do.
Is that something the council would want to consider? Do we need a more formalized report from staff? Councilor Richardson.
Like, I don't know, like, I see in other municipalities where, like, on the Great Lakes or bigger rivers, probably where people are fishing all the time. Like, you know, my biggest concern is the liability with the water skippers, and if that's the entry they're doing, that's my biggest problem. I'd like to be us having a firm end date and beginning date, I don't see it as a big problem personally, but I mean, I could be wrong because I'm not a launch monitor and I don't launch boats, but that is my biggest concern is that water skippers, because someday something's gonna go
Something is
wrong.
gonna happen.
You know, and even if we just put like, Mr. Sprint said, one of those concrete barriers there. I mean, are we making more work for ourselves by doing those other things, you know?
Councilor
But
Brady and Councilor Robinson.
Even if we put a block of boat launch here at municipal park, they should ever down to the township park. Like, how do you?
Okay, oh, if I can talk. Remember when we were sitting in a meeting with Shayla and she said this, let's just say, even with all the precautions she took, somebody got COVID, it could happen. So like to me, she was doing her due diligence, making sure like we never crossed paths, making sure hand sanitizers and wipes were there, talking about the washrooms. I think that's all doing due diligence. So, I mean, we can't prevent people from doing wrong things. However, if we realize there's an issue, and people can say, you knew there was an issue because we're talking about it in public airwaves, and we didn't do anything about it, then I think we truly are liable. Like, we can't predict what's going to happen, right? But if we know something like that, and I always worry about that because I can hear it at my place, right?
Oh, I hear that, right?
You know, and so like, you know, and like, there tends to be alcohol sometimes, I think. or
Yes,
other
yes, there is. Yes.
So probably the easiest solution to help everyone is to put a firm date. You put the date, your date is, you say May 1st to October 31st, and you pass a bylaw, and you say there's no use of this. If someone uses it, they use it at their own risk, but then you have the ability that if you do have a problem and you have an actual bylaw to it, then your enforcement officers could enforce it if you choose to do that. You don't have to choose to do that, but you have something in place then. And if it's okay for people to go in December 1st, let them go in, but at least if you have a sign there, you protected yourself.
And interestingly enough, today during a meeting, I got an email, I think it was from Minnesota, where they're having a real problem with people coming from the cities into the public boat launch areas. And it's causing traffic problems, it's causing garbage problems, and they were polling other municipalities to see if we're having some of the same challenges.
Sales scam. I don't know if that happened.
Oh, is that right?
Well, the sale thing, they're trying to get in that particular case, it's a company selling call-in boat launch, they're like your fire permit thing. So they're actually not really doing a poll, they're actually trying to sell their service, which we have unmanned boat launches, so there's no point in doing it here, but they're trying to sell that service.
It just, for me, raised the issue on boat launches, and is it a problem we need to look at?
So council has an interest, so you're not gonna do anything this year,
No.
so for the next 6 months, we'll come back and report.
Right, because I imagine those concrete barriers cost money.
Okay.
Something we could have said, open for the first.
We still, I think you're better to do it for like the start of the year, and the concrete barrier on Melissa Bishop is actually pretty good, because you take it back from Melissa Bishop to the front, will be a barrier for people driving in the wrong place in the summer, and in the fall, it goes back to the loader carrier over, so that's a convenient.
Okay, seeing no other comments, then I'll call for the vote. Councilor Buckle?
Yes.
Councilor Burns?
Yes.
Councilor Rickenfeldt?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
And a yes. It's carried. Thank you. That brings us to correspondence. Item 9.1.1. We have a resolution that the council accepts correspondence items 9.1.1 to 9.1.8 as information. I'm going to move in a second. By Councilor Burns, seconded by Councilor Rickenfeldt. Comments or questions? Councilor Rickenfeldt.
Just as like, you know, we always talk about word of mouth, that VTAC, I don't know if that's how they say it, is just a really, really good service. And as we were talking before, the more people that use the service might give justification for them keeping that service longer. So especially if you know somebody that doesn't have a primary healthcare provider, that's an excellent resource. Just saying.
I would agree. And that YouTube link is actually the doctor talking about the great work that the county is doing with the rehab.
So if you know somebody, I'm telling you, spread the word.
Seeing no other comments, I'll call for the vote. Councillor Buckwald,
Yes.
Councillor Burns,
Yes,
Councillor Ricky Schonfeld,
Yes,
Councillor Robinson,
Yes,
and a yes, that's carried. Thank you. Item 9.2.1 is the federal gun control resolution. So I have a resolution, and it's kind of lengthy, but I'll read it. Whereas on May 1st, 2020, the federal government, through an order of council and not through open bipartisan participation in a time of extreme national distress, and in part as a reaction to an unrelated horrendous crime, brought in law amendments to the criminal code prohibiting or restricting 1,500 different weapons or components to protect public safety. And further announced the concept of a buyback plan estimated to cost hundreds of millions of taxpayers' dollars at a time when there is world financial unrest, with millions of Canadians out of work and thousands of Canadian businesses struggling to survive. Be it resolved that the Township of North Algona, Wlberforce officially protests the introduction of these amendments to the criminal code at a time of financial hardship for our residents through a process that was without bipartisan participation and in the wake of terrible human tragedy that is not directly linked to the amended regulation. And that the federal government needs to concentrate on the severe financial issues facing Canadians at this time. The government needs to be transparent and open in the governance of this country, allowing all elected to participate. And the Township of North Algona, Wlberforce is strongly against gun violence and crime in this country and will support meaningful legislation that will reduce the loss of life through firearm-related crimes at a time that is appropriate through open bipartisan participation. And further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Bill Blair, Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, and Cheryl Gallant, Member of Parliament for Renfrew, Nipissing County. And I got a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Burns, seconded by Councillor Buckwald. Questions, comments? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Councillor Buckwald,
Absolutely.
Councillor Burns,
yes,
Councillor Ricky Schonfeld,
yes,
Councillor Robinson,
yes,
and a yes, that's carried. Thank you very much.
James, no votes. Question?
Sure.
Could we shift forward to 9.1.6? I just missed that one there. The county official plan amendment. Is there anything that we can help the county to do on the? It wasn't, no, it's just one that
Oh,
was
it's in the
in
correspondence.
action.
Yes, if you could bring it up, please.
Of the changes to give the official plan.
I can say at the council county meeting, there were certainly, myself included, a number of mayors that were really not happy with the changes to the official plan and spoke very strongly against it. And the county council directed staff through the Warden's Caucus to take the issue back to the Eastern Ontario Wardens Group. And, you know, once again, bring our message that we don't agree with this, that this is going to certainly put a constraint on a lot of our small municipalities to develop lots and severances. And and continue pressure on them to make changes. Now, having spoken to the CAO, Paul Morrow, he said because the county had started this, had sent in their appeals and objections already last year. From what I was told by the CAO is that all the other Eastern Ontario municipalities, and I have to check this to make sure that it's accurate, they waited until they agreed to these amendments, and then they just brought it into force and ignored everything that Renfrew County, not everything that Renfrew County was asking for. The one thing they did allow, they were talking about reducing the number of severances on a property to 3, but they are allowing the 3 + 2. So.
Who decides like the deer habitat, and who decides this is agricultural land? Because like our agricultural land, you can't compare to Douglas's agricultural land, but you can't compare to Southern Ontario agricultural land. Like who I don't know.
Absolutely, and the only thing I can think of, and county agreed, is that somebody obviously in the department or in Toronto or in the ministry just all of a sudden changes the designation, because that question was asked, like in North Algona, what changed that all of a sudden land that was never deemed prime agriculture before is now deemed prime agriculture? And who made that decision, and how did they arrive at that decision? Did they actually come across the land? Yeah, and why?
Yeah, so yeah.
And the old comment was, there should have been never any farmland northwest of Kelly Corner. That's when you're getting all the rocks and stuff like that. And that was the old comment said for years.
Is it like, I mean, I look at us, so we've got farm status with income tax, right? But I mean, truly, it's a pasture land, it's not farmland. But do they look at, say, what your income tax designation is, and then say, you're a farmer, therefore you must have agricultural land? Like, you know, like, I wish I knew their method to the madness, because it does seem, and plus too, like looking at Gregory Richards, if they gave them some kind of tax benefit or tax relief or something for protecting these yards, so basically you can't do anything with the land, you get taxed on, right?
Yeah.
Which is, what's the purpose of owning your land when you can't do what you do? Now, that's within reason, but you know what I want to say.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I mean, it is part of the frustration that we're facing.
So what you're saying is county is trying to do something.
County is pushing back and trying to do something, because even in another example, Petawawa, they've identified along the Petawawa River, because it's all sand out there, that's a sand resource and not available for development. And the county says, well, you've got to give us an exemption because it's already developed. And they said, well, we won't change it unless you do a study.
But is it something that we often do to send a letter? And
Absolutely,
you know,
we can.
so I
Yes.
think
That's what I was saying. You should get through the letter.
I mean, and they
Supports
just,
it, yeah.
right, just like other communities support us, and maybe then like that's something you can take back to county where everybody gets support from their local council. So
Yeah,
the
right.
ministry gets bombarded with.
Yeah, it's not just county that's doing it, it is all of them.
That's just the idea and work its way up.
So, yes, I'm seeing where staff is willing to draft a letter for the next meeting. And that would be helpful, because then we could get it to county council before the county council meeting at the end of the month.
Just want to thank everybody for looking at that.
Do we need a resolution for that, Andrew?
It is a correspondence, and I heard the council want you to do something sort of good.
Okay,
It's just
Direction.
okay.
I'm sure you get in trouble for that.
So that brings us then to 9.2.2, which is the letter from Moultrie Valley requesting money for renovations of the rink, I believe. The arena, yes. The arena. So I have a resolution that council requests staff to provide more information on why the renovations are necessary at this time. got a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Rankin-Schoenfeld, seconded by Councilor Robinson. Questions, comments?
So we have paid our amount, though,
Yes.
right, or like users fee or whatever, so it's unfortunate that you're telling us now after we've already done a budget, which we don't have any wiggle room in our budget to do. So, like, to me, it doesn't seem like it's expensive, the $6,300 doesn't seem major, but they probably, and when they talk about accessibility, didn't they talk about accessibility stuff in that first paragraph? I was thinking like, you know, Mr. Springs always finding these grants and stuff like that. I think accessibility would be a big one, and they could have found some monies for it, some kind of something, you know, and even health and safety. So to me, you know, it's kind of poor timing on a number of fronts.
Well, I agree. I would like to see more detailed information on, you know, why they need these renovations. They did offer to provide more information and look at some of
They
their.
provided more council, not the council you actually want to see once you buy the journey.
Yeah. But
And why are they doing it now? Why?
I don't even.
That should have been in place a number of years ago.
So again, you need more information about the status of that.
Right.
and like maybe other sources they're going to, like, you know. I mean, I just feel uncomfortable doing it right now.
Well, I agree because we've already passed. it.
Yeah, our budget is passing.
And I don't know if they've passed theirs yet.
And if it is not,
No.
and did we investigate other possible ways of, you know, massaging its accessibility, perhaps through that accessibility, we could get all of these things.
I think because of the funding challenges we have with the road projects.
No, I'd rather put a culvert in
Yeah, me
than I
too.
would spend.
Okay, so I will call for the vote. Councilor Buckle?
For more information?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Burke?
Yes, yes. No.
Councilor Rankin-Schoenfeld?
Yes.
Councilor Robinson?
Yes.
And yes, carried. Thank you. Item 9.2.3 is the City of Brantford Essential Workers Day. I have a resolution that council either supports or does not support the City of Brantford in their request to the Government of Ontario and the Government of Canada to formally declare that March 17th the Essential Workers Day to honor all of the essential workers who sacrificed so much during the COVID-19 pandemic. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Byrne, seconded by Councilor Robinson. Questions, comments?
March 17th. I would pick a different.
Say, how do you do?
You know,
I know.
I would have picked like
The
18th.
Because I'm just gonna be hungover anyway.
I know, but I guess that's probably maybe the start of the regulations. That's when the big league said no one St. Patrick's Day stuff. But anyway, I don't think they're going to change the date.
Then there's a thought of that.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, though.
I mean, I like the idea, it's just the date is kind of like,
Maybe there's no Irish people in
So I'm hearing council would support it. Call for the vote, Councilor Buckle. Councilor Byrne.
Yes.
Councilor Rankin-Schoenfeld.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
yes.
And yes, that's
The
carried.
date is for that.
March 17th. And then we get to bylaws, and I have 8 bylaws in regards to shoreline purchases. And I've asked staff if I have to read every single one, and it's been suggested that I read one, and then we can maybe pass the others as a group because they are all the same. The wording is the same on every one. Can you bring up the wording of the resolution, please? Do you want me to just bring it up on my computer? No, we just have the list of residents, but we don't have the actual resolution to enact the bylaw.
The resolution should be out, we can't see it, you can see it in the council and act following bylaw.
Yeah, but he wants the word.
I want the actual wording on to read one.
So it's like to
He wants
authorize
like,
closing.
run the resolution.
Yeah,
Go up to,
We'll give you a paper copy.
sure.
It's in the packet, it was a weird paper copy.
Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of reading. So, this is a bylaw to authorize the permanent closing of certain portions of the shoreline road allowance along Lake Dory, fronting part lot 11, Lake Dory Range, and part of road allowance between lot 16, concession 13, and lot 11, concession 13 on Lake Dory Range, now in the township of North Algona, Wlberforce, county of Brantford. To declare the foregoing lands and other lands as surplus to the municipality's needs, to authorize the selling of such lands, and in accordance with sections 34 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25. Whereas council deems it to be in the best interest of the municipality that those portions of the shoreline road allowance along Lake Dory, fronting part lot 11, Lake Dory Range in the geographic township of Wlberforce, now in the Township of North Algona, Wlberforce, being Part 1 RP 49R 19526, being part of PIN number 57420-0111. The shoreline road allowance be permanently closed pursuant to Section 34 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, Chapter 25 as amended. And whereas it is further deemed expedient and in the interest of the corporation of North Algona, Wlberforce Township, that the shoreline road allowance be declared surplus to the municipality's needs. And whereas notice of this bylaw has been given in accordance with the procedures approved by council for giving such notice. And whereas council wishes to transfer the shoreline road allowance to Ralph Wayne Schultz and Wendy Lee S.E. Schultz as the owners of those lands located immediately opposite the shoreline road allowance, more particularly described as part lots 10 and 11, Lake Dory Range, and part lot 13, concession 13, being all of PIN 57420-0064 LT, now in the township of North Algona, Wlberforce, county of Brantford. Now, therefore, the Council of the Corporation of North Algona, Wlberforce Township hereby enacts as follows. Those portions of the road allowance along Lake Dory, fronting part lot 11, Lake Dory Range, being part 1, Plan 49R-19526, now in North Algona, Wlberforce Township, being part of PIN 57420-0111 LT, be permanently closed. The foregoing portions of the shoreline road allowance are hereby declared surplus to the municipality's needs. In consideration of the sum of $495, $1 per linear foot of frontage, receipt of which is hereby acknowledged, and other good and valuable consideration paid to the municipality, the shoreline road allowance be conveyed to Ralph Wayne Schultz and Wendy Lee S.E. Schultz. Transfer to Ralph Wayne Schultz and Wendy Lee S.E. Schultz shall be conditional upon entering a restrictive covenant agreement satisfactory to the municipality, and to be registered against the property currently owned by them, being PIN 57420-0064 LT, and the shoreline road allowance be transferred to them, the effect of which is to ensure the shoreline road allowance and the Schultz property is dealt with in the future as a single parcel of land. The Mayor and Chief Administrative Officer, acting clerk of the Corporation of the Township of North Algona, Wlberforce, be and are hereby authorized to execute on behalf of the municipality under corporate seal such transfers acknowledgements, directions, and other documents as may be necessary to convey title to the lands to be conveyed by the municipality. This bylaw shall not take effect until a certified copy hereof has been registered in the registry office for the Land Titles Office of Brentford, number 49. Read and passed this second day of June 2020. That's how it reads. Then I will read the list that council enacts the following bylaws. 2020-54 for Ralph and Wendy Schultz, Part 1, Plan 49R 19526. 2020-55 Ralph and Wendy Schultz, Part 1, Plan 49R 19526, Restricted Covenant. 2020-56 Ronald Greer, Part 4, Plan 49R 4489. 2020-57 Ronald Greer, Part 4, Plan 49R 4489, Restricted Covenant. 2020-58 Teresa Ann Fulton, Part 3, Plan 49R 19526. 2020-59 Teresa Ann Fulton, Part 3, Plan 49R 19526, Restricted Covenant. 2020-60 Gregory and Donna Russell, Part 2, Plan 49R 4489. 2020-61 Gregory and Donna Russell, Part 2, Plan 49R 4489, Restricted Covenant. 2020-47 Communicate, oh, sorry.
You're doing great.
Stop right there.
Yeah.
So those are the list of shoreline road allowance transfers. Can I get a mover and a seconder?
No.
Moved by Councilor Robinson, seconded by Councilor Bucklow. Questions, comments? Oh, sorry,
Just
that.
for council's assistance, bylaw 47 is on that same resolution.
Okay,
So you probably should use that bylaw too and do it if you want on the same resolution.
okay.
Typically, you pass your bylaws as a group.
So can we bring up that terms of reference? Has everybody had a chance to read it, or do you want to review it again here?
We can ask questions though.
Yes. Can you scroll down, please? So I will add 2020-47- Communications Committee bylaw, the addition of terms of reference. It's been moved and seconded. Comments and questions? Councilor Richard-Schoenfeld and then Councilor Robinson.
Okay, so just for clarification, where it says the committee, it's just before the word term. The committee will be supported by municipal staff member as required from time to time. When would that happen? Or what circumstances that happen?
I believe the support is for is that for the taking of minutes during our communications committee meeting?
Normally you would have staff take minutes at these meetings. The reason it's worded that way is it means you can have different staff in the room,
Oh, okay. And then.
depending on what you need.
Okay. And then the term, 1 year for member, right at the very bottom where it says the term of the committee member is 1 year. So I can see that, but we don't have to say anything, we don't have to put anything in the terms of reference of the ratepayer that is on the list, right? Because this is a term of reference.
This is a term, this is your guide.
Yeah, okay, and then the last question I have was, and I think I got it, I just want to make sure. So the committee would talk to council, ironically, we're all on council, and then council would direct someone to write the letter or do something, right?
I believe so.
So that's why,
Wait, so you're a committee, you decide, well, yeah, we should do it this way, so you would send a report. And what it says in there is it's going to be a written report back to council,
Okay.
saying this is what we recommend as action, and depending on what the action is, it may or may not be full set.
right, so could it be something, could you envision this, like the committee decides that the mayor is gonna send Jane Doe a letter, or the committee recommends that office send Jane Doe a letter, is that like kind of where you?
So the committee could recommend, let's use Jane because she's a good person, Jane Doe. If the committee recommends that staff engage Jane Doe to help her with her zoning,
Right.
but not to engage in any other way, then the committee could recommend that to council, and council would say, again, like you said, ironically, you're on the same team, could say, well, no, we don't think that's the proper way to do it. But you would recommend what you think as a committee, and you're the exclusive receptors of that person's email.
Okay,
I was wondering why we have a term of 1 year, but we make it the same term, change when council changes.
That's up to council if you want to adjust it, change it.
It's all fine.
And I can speak on that.
Okay.
So because this is something new that you're doing, when Mr. Casson worked on drafting this, he wanted to give you a chance to review it. That's why you have 1 year. So 1 year, you may say this is the term, those are going to be something different.
Okay.
That's a record something.
and because these are our kind of our mandate, should it say who, okay, so it goes to that email, should somewhere in the body of this say something like the chair of the committee will open up the email?
You've already set it up with just the chair and also they're going to get the email anyway. You try not to put a lot of things in terms of reference, it's not to keep you going. And the other, I want to go back to your question, just one thing, and again, the whole thing, is that you have all your committees are renewed every year. So it's basically, you put that on your committee, and it may just be something you just keep rotating, so it's not that you're going to do a separate report for it, you'll just get it with the committee for the year.
So when was it we appointed the chair when we?
Yeah. Seeing no other, oh, sorry, Councilor Buckle.
Actually, council has to appoint the committee, the chair of the committee, not the committee. Under this terms of reference.
Mhm.
The chair of committee shall be appointed by council.
Okay.
So that would have to be an appointment made by council in open session.
And would that have to be made like next meeting?
That would have to be made before the committee meets, I would think.
Okay.
So we would
be on
yes.
November 11th.
You've already covered that in closed session prior to this.
Okay.
So because that's been closed, you should bring it back and open, so that you've already covered that. And you need a closed session.
So we've appointed the chair?
You have appointed a chair and open.
Okay.
So we can, because that's been closed, I'll give you an update.
Okay.
Just procedural question, if I can ask for Andrew. Because it's not, because all these meetings aren't necessarily going to be in camera, doesn't the committee appointment have to be made in open session?
Well, what
The chair?
is what you just said, at the next council meeting, we can bring that appointment back to council.
Okay.
But you've already done that because on the journey here.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that you have to make the announcement for addition B for that amendment. Because you made a list of the bylaws
Yeah,
and you stopped at number
That's it.
61.
The chair, they have to appoint for council too, so that's.
Yes.
so, and I thought I covered it, and maybe I didn't, that the other item added to the bylaws is 2020-47- Communications Committee bylaw, which is the addition of the terms of reference. Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll call the vote. Councillor Buckwell,
Yes.
Councillor Byrne,
Yes.
Councillor Recchi Schoenfeld,
Yes.
Councillor Robinson,
Yes.
and a yes. That's carried. Thank you very much. I have a resolution that council going to a closed meeting pursuant to section 2392B of the Municipal Act for 1, the purpose of educating or training members, and 2, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Byrne, seconded by Councilor Buckwell. I'll call the vote. Councilor Buckwell,
Yes.
Councilor Byrne,
Yes.
Councilor Recchi Schoenfeld,
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
And a yes, that's carried. Thank you. We are now closed at 8:52 p.m. We'll take 10 minutes so that staff has a chance to